Welcome to The Last of Us Part 1, a classic zombie game that tugs at your heartstrings and where you are never safe. Today I will be trying to beat this game on Grounded mode, its hardest difficulty, without upgrades and without crafting. Upgrades include any upgrades to Joel himself or weapon upgrades, and crafting includes anything I create myself. The one exception to the no crafting rule is anything I find that is already crafted I am allowed to use. One more thing, no matter how sticky of a situation I get myself into, I cannot save scum. I am only allowed to use the automatic quick saves that the game gives me. And with that all out of the way, let's begin. Now, the start of this run is quite important. I put the game on grounded mode for obvious reasons, but I also have to turn this setting off. Since I have the digital deluxe edition to this game, I get the bonus that comes along with it. I need to turn this off because with it on, it automatically gives me a couple upgrades to start off the game with. Needless to say, this would automatically invalidate the run, and I turn it off before proceeding. We start the game off as Sarah and we need to go find our dad Joel. After getting down to the study and through the door, hey look, we found him! Oh look, he has a friend with him. Oh, that wasn't a friend, that was just someone needing their daily dose of lead. Anyways, time to go. Outside, we meet up with Tommy, Joel's brother, and we drive off in his car. Along the way, we see that the world around us is plunging into chaos, making our escape difficult. After getting stuck in traffic and attacked by a hospital patient, Tommy makes the decision to back up and try to find a new way through. This then leads to driving through a crowd of people to safety. No, I'm just kidding. The game is not going to be that easy. After that little kerfuffle, we then take control of Joel. After getting out of the truck, we're then attacked by someone trying to sell their Avon before Tommy saves us. Getting Sarah out of the wreckage, we find that she has a hurt leg, so we need to carry her, thus making us defenseless. After running through the town and a couple alleys, we split off from Tommy so that we can get ahead while he keeps the infected at bay. We start to make our way towards the bridge in the distance, but end up getting chased. Luckily, there's a nice friendly soldier that pops up at the perfect time to save us and get us out of there. Yeah, I should have saw that one coming as well. Sarah then decides to cancel her living subscription and kicks the bucket. We then jump forward 20 years into the future and start summer. We awake to the sound of someone knocking on our door, and that someone is Tess. She's here to inform us that a guy named Robert has sold someone our guns that he owes us. So now we get to track him down. We're stuck in a quarantine zone, so we have to make it through a checkpoint before heading to the zone where Robert is. However, this checkpoint gets ambushed by the Fireflies, the rebel group of this game, and we're forced to find another way there. Thankfully, with Joel and Tess being smugglers, there is another way. We drop down into this dirty cavern and pick up some supplies on our way out. Joel, we're not gonna need those, but those are and he took them anyways. After traveling a bit, we come across our first section of spores. This is an airborne version of the cordyceps fungus, and we can't breathe it in. Cordyceps fungus being what makes infected. We end up finding someone else down here, pinned down under a filing cabinet with his mask broke. He's going to die anyway, so we put him out of his misery and take his ammo. Now for the combat tutorial. There's just one infected chilling in this room that we can sneak attack, and two more munching on a dead guy in the next room. After completely whiffing one of my shots, I take him down with ease. A little bit of traveling later and we make it back into the quarantine zone. It's here that we meet up with some of Robert's men. They try to make us leave, but Tess decides to delete a section of one of their faces with her gun. At this point in the game, the combat really starts to ramp up, and with this being on grounded mode, I'm wanting to take it nice and slowly and make every shot count. After that, we come up to a bit of a stealth section. For whatever reason in this game, most enemies are programmed to go to a set location and just stand there. So as long as you know that location and which way they're going to be facing, you can sneak attack them with no problem. After that bit, we're then introduced to bricks and bottles. These will be an essential tool throughout this run. Throwing one of these at an enemy and attacking them gives you a faster way of finishing them off by stunning them first. Clearing out this section, we also get our first health pack and shiv of the run. This health pack is going in my back pocket and staying there. And as for the shiv, those will not be used on enemies, but instead on locked doors throughout the game. These locked doors usually have ammo and supplies inside of them, but we only really care about the ammo for this challenge. We make it outside and finally get a glimpse of Robert. Unluckily for us, there's a bunch of his goons in between us and him. That's fine, we'll just deal with them. After a few pro gamer moves, I make it through on my first try. Finally meeting up with Robert, he pulls out a gun and starts shooting at us. Idiot runs out of bullets and then tries to run, so we give chase. Before long, we catch him trying to escape through a locked fence and interrogate him. After telling him about our love for Rice Krispie cereal and how they snap, crackle, and pop, We find out that the people who have our guns are the Fireflies. Needless to say, we can't just go get those back, so we delete his face as well. For no other reason but for plot purposes, the leader of the Fireflies, Marlene, shows up looking for Robert. After she learns of the gun situation, she offers us a trade deal. Since she paid for the guns, all we need to do is smuggle something out of the city for her, and the guns are ours. So we follow her to her hideout. On the way there, we come across some Federal soldiers and we need to take them out. All goes well and I sneak kill most of them except this last guy. After taking his nice sweet time coming up the stairs, he sees me trying to sneak up on him and decides to not go down without a fight and punches us. After killing him and doing a quick teabag, we carry on. After making it to Marlene's hideout, we find out that it's not normal cargo that we have to smuggle out of the city, it's a little girl named Ellie. Since Marlene was shot and injured, her and Tess leave to go get her patched up and for Tess to take a look at the guns. Joel and Ellie head off to a safe room by the northwest tunnel, our escape out of the quarantine zone. After a quick nap, Tess comes back saying that the deal is legit and we just need to get Ellie outside the city and the guns are ours. While making our way out, we're ambushed by a couple Federal soldiers and we're checked for infection while they call for backup. Ellie ends up freaking out and attacking one of them, leading to Joel and Tess taking both out. It's here we find out why Ellie just freaked out and why we need to smuggle her out of the city. She's immune. According to Ellie, despite getting bit 3 weeks ago and everyone turning within a couple days, she's doing fine. While Joel and Tess don't fully believe her, they make a run for it anyways because the reinforcements are arriving. For this next bit, it's basically one stealth section. Federal soldiers are all over the place and we need to stay out of their line of sight. Thankfully, their line of sight is marked with a flashlight, so it goes pretty smoothly. That was until the second bit with a bunch of soldiers walking down a road that we need to go down. I didn't realize it when I started running, but they were close enough to hear me. A couple bricks thrown their way to scare them off and I just sprinted past them without issue. Finally making it outside the city walls, we find out the full truth of why we need to get Ellie to the Fireflies. The Fireflies have their own little quarantine zone with doctors who are still trying to find a cure. Afterwards, Joel has a bit of a fit, but we head on. On the way to the Capitol building, we have to cut through a couple other buildings in order to get there. The first one is the slanted building that introduces us to the next enemy type, clickers. These guys are blind infected that see using echolocation, and these guys kick ass and take names. After progressing a bit further, we also find our next gun, the revolver. This is then followed up by another infected encounter. This part is pretty difficult and tedious, but thanks to my knowledge of the game, I was able to dispatch the main infected pretty smoothly. There's a slight ledge here that if Joel hits an infected off, it's an insta-kill. Then all that was left was the clicker. Thankfully, you can kill the clicker with just a brick. Easy as that. Traveling a bit more, we make it to a collapsed subway tunnel and terminal. It's here that we find a crafted Molotov cocktail. That's definitely not gonna sit in my back pocket until the end of the game because I forgot about it and then still be useless. There's a few infected and a whole bunch of clickers in this next area. That being said, we do have to kill a couple infected and lure away clickers in order to reach the exit. After dying a couple times because I was being too cautious, I'd eventually make it to the ladder to escape and make it out alright. A bit later, we're then trapped in a museum by a horde of them. Now from here going forward is when this challenge really starts to take hold because this is the building where we find our first workbench. These paired with the tools that we picked up involuntarily at the beginning of the game would allow us to upgrade our weapons. Going forward, the game is going to expect us to have those upgrades, but since we're not going to have them, the true difficulty starts here. We get separated from Tess and Ellie thanks to a beam falling down, and when we finally meet back up, there's another fight. This is when bricks and bottles really start to show their usefulness. If I throw a brick at an enemy and attack them, it's 2 hits and they're dead rather than the 4 or 5 if I took them head on. Before long, we make it through. Some sightseeing and a bit of parkour later, we make it to the Capitol building. However, once we get in, we find our luck has run out, and the Fireflies are dead. Not only that, but Tess got bitten during the last encounter. Tess then realizes that Ellie is telling the truth because despite her being bitten only an hour ago, it's already worse than Ellie's bite. She wants us to go find Tommy because he'd know where the Fireflies are. While trying to process this, Fedora shows up at the Capitol building hunting us down. No clue how they found us, but sure. Tess decides to give up her life so that she doesn't become one of the infected and buys us some time to get out of there. Running through the building, we hear confirmation that Tess has died, but there's no use dwelling on that right now because now we have to fight. It's here that we find our third weapon of the run, the hunting rifle. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet, and looking at my guns thus far doesn't reflect it, but ammo is quite scarce in this mode. You can run out of ammo killing a couple guys and only get a single bullet back. So when we pick up the hunting rifle, it's a nice surprise when we see that it has 6 bullets bullets automatically. Once we clear out the enemies, as if they ever had a chance of killing us, we run across the road and down into the subway. It's down here that we find out Ellie is in fact not lying to us and is truly immune, because even without a mask, she's able to breathe in spores just fine. It's also here that we find out Ellie can't swim, so we have to use a pallet to get her across so we can escape the subway. Once we get out, we head towards one of Joel's contacts, Bill, in order to get a car. Upon arriving, we find tripwire traps set by Bill himself. It's nothing too bad, we just need to watch out for the wire and throw bricks at them whenever we see them. Soon after, we even get a bow, which will allow us to kill people without making much noise. A little bit later, we find another one of Bill's traps. I like to call this one rope tied to fridge. Yeah, this one doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we're upside down now. Thankfully, during this section, we have unlimited ammo, and I noticed a way that makes this grounded mode easier than the remaster's grounded mode. In the remaster, the revolver was a one-shot to human enemies alone, but I'm sure as you can see, it's one-shotting infected as well, so that's a nice bonus. Ellie cuts us down, and then we're saved by Bill and taken to one of his hideouts. We inform Bill that we're needing a car, and after telling us that there's only parts of cars in this town, he says that we'll need more supplies from his main hideout before heading off to find a battery. And here we find another type of upgrade for us, survival guides. The survival guides upgrades the effectiveness of our crafted items. While we can't craft items ourselves, any crafted items will be upgraded, so these books are off limits. A short walk and a quick fight later, we make it to Bill's main safe house. Here we get two things, a shotgun and a nail bomb. Bomb's going in my right back pocket for safekeeping, and the shotgun's gonna be used. With the right positioning, I can kick more than just one enemy off this plane of existence at a time if I wanted to. This next bit has quite a few clickers we need to deal with. Thankfully, since we have a melee weapon and there's a bunch of bricks and bottles around, you know what that means. In the back alley after this section, there's even more infected and clickers, none of which really pose a threat thanks to how large this area is. Damn it, I spoke too soon on that one. Anyways, it's pretty easy to sneak up on one individually or lure one away from the group and take them out that way. Even the house full of clickers right after this can easily be sneaked through. This next part is quite difficult because it's the high school. We're here to get that battery, but it's surrounded by infected. This first part is pretty nerve-wracking because there's a lot of infected and we need to be really slow and methodical with it, and I just broke his neck. And now they're all after me. Great. After using the ledge trick again to deal with most of them, we can finally progress. That is, until this moment in particular. You see, in this game, there's certain triggers that will alert enemies regardless of what you do, and as you'll see here, is one of those triggers. For this wave, I just went back to the buses and used the ledge strat again. Getting into the high school, we're ambushed yet again, and we need to barricade the door while Bill gets the battery. However, fucking empty! Since the battery is no longer there, we have to fight through the high school in order to escape. We have a couple hallways of infected to fight through, and while I do die a couple times, eventually I get my patience back and I make it through. Now, to fight a bloater. This fight is no joke. This guy can one-shot me if he even gets near me, so I need to keep my distance and pelt him with all the lead that I have. And if I'm not mistaken, the bloater's legs are pretty weak due to not having as much fungal plates on them, so I aim for that. After a pretty unnerving fight and constantly running out of ammo, I take it down, surprisingly, on my first attempt. Getting our asses out of there, we unfortunately find Bill's partner, Frank. Let's just say he wasn't having the best of times. Soon after though, we find our missing battery. It turns out that Frank was the one who took the battery and was building a truck to escape. And while the battery is dead, if we get it moving down a hill just outside, we can get the alternator started and the truck running. So we do just that. Of course, with this being a zombie game and us having a very loud moving vehicle, the infected show up to have their fun. While trying to get the truck down the hill, we have to fight off 3 waves of infected. Thankfully for this fight, Bill does quite a bit of the heavy lifting, surprisingly. While he's not good at killing, he is really good at pulling aggro, so it works out. Once the truck hits the bottom of the hill and Ellie is able to start it, me and Bill jump in the back, getting out of there. It's not long before we drop off Bill and head to our next major section of the game, Pittsburgh. On the way there, Ellie pulls out some magazines that she stole from Bill. These magazines are 100% family friendly and definitely aren't stuck together with the coveted mystery fluids. After finally making it to Pittsburgh, we meet the local wildlife and get started with our exploring. Of course, these groupers try to stand in our way, but at this point, they're nothing more than a roadblock. After finishing off these guys and making our way through this garage door, we find out that these people are hunters and actual animals who hunt humans for fun and cannibalize them. It's also in this room that we find our next crafted item, the smoke bomb. Getting out onto the street on the other side, more hunters show up. Thankfully, these guys, you can just leave them be and they'll walk by. The next bit, I fight through a pretty sizable group of hunters. I know you can sneak through this area because I've done it before, but I decided to fight through it. Yeah, that wasn't a great idea. This is when I noticed another grounded change for part 1. Unlike the remastered version, checkpoints are not affected. This means whenever I meet the requirements, I will get a checkpoint. That sounds great and all, but that means no matter what happens, I get that checkpoint. This means if I play a combat encounter poorly, but make it far enough, I have to live with the consequences of my own actions. Needless to say, this becomes a pretty big issue later on in this game. Finally, after a whole lot of fighting, killing, and dying, I make it through the bookstore and continue on. While progressing, we come across a very unwelcoming truck with a turret mounted on it. Don't worry though, that will absolutely be an issue going forward. Thanks to our recent truck sightseeing, we decide to follow some hunters through a hotel. And I don't think I need to say this, but inside this hotel, we get to fight hunters. Yep, a whole mess of them. And it was totally easy going, and I definitely got it on my first try. Eventually, I do regain my senses of this game and stealth kill every last one of them. Once that's dealt with, we find an elevator. After getting Ellie up, Joel falls down the chute into the hotel basement. Ellie is told to stay there, and we start trying to make our way back up there alone. In order to get out, we need to power up this door by turning on the generator and finding a keycard to unlock it. Simple, right? Well, during this section, we're introduced to the final infected type of the game, stalkers. These guys are a sneaky version of runners, and if it wasn't obvious already, the moment we turn on said generator, they all come a-running. Thankfully, they can be pretty easily dealt with. That being said, a bloater also spawns. After hearing it scream, I got the hell out of there. Apart from this one goofy-ass death I had, all went well and I was able to escape. We're not out of the woods just yet, as in the next section there's 4 more hunters that we need to deal with. Doing so is nothing too bad, but as we're exiting this room, we're ambushed by another one. This hunter manages to hold us down in this pit of water while our gun gets away from us. While it looks like all hope is lost, Ellie shows up out of nowhere, picking up the gun and killing the guy to save us. Joel, being the little shitbaggy he is, isn't happy with Ellie because she was told to wait, but we continue on. Making our way outside the building, we come across another large group of hunters. Joel tells Ellie to stay up on the catwalk while we deal with them and gives her a gun. Before jumping down, he remarks that it was either him or me, in turn thanking Ellie for saving his life earlier. Now for the courtyard fight. I would be lying if I didn't say that this fight wasn't a huge hurdle in this run. By this point in the game, you're already meant to have upgraded weapons and be using crafted items to your advantage. The best we have is our wits, so it doesn't go smoothly. It doesn't help that my stubborn ass loves to start this fight in one way, turning 4 people into a fine mist. After that, all hell breaks loose. While I was playing through this section, I found no safe spot. No matter where I was, eventually an enemy would corner me and lead to my death. I probably tried to be super careful in this fight around 4 or 5 times, with each one not getting very far. It wasn't until I decided to be aggressive with it that I was able to make it through. The hardest part about this was that whenever I died, it was in an instant. There was no build-up, there was no warning, just death. That sentence kind of sums up the entire run as well. Hell, even on my winning attempt, I was staring death straight in the face when I won. When there was only one guy left, I must have hit the RNG lottery because not only did he miss 1 shot, he missed 2. And it's thanks to the fact that he missed both shots that I was able to survive and take him out. With that small victory past us, we come across our old friend, the turret truck. It's back and ready to play. Continuing on, we find a couple stragglers and then a big old group just after them. This arena is actually multi-leveled. Some are on the 2nd floor of a building, while the rest are on the ground. After dealing with the guys on the 2nd floor, I made my way down and started picking those ones off. Also, there's a small bookstore in this area with trip mines in it, and surprisingly, and causing me to jump, one of the enemies walked into one of these traps. I guess consuming human flesh makes you a bit of an idiot. Not long after, we can progress further. Oh look, the truck wants his turn railing us now. Remember that one trigger point before the high school in Billstown? There's another one of those here, and to our absolute delight, it's one that triggers the truck. Of course, we're not only dealing with the truck, we get to deal with enemies as well. I don't think I need to point out the fact that us having low health doesn't make this go well. Thankfully, or unthankfully really, there's a checkpoint in the middle of this section. And with my luck, of course it happens when I'm at the lowest health possible from dying. Joel could fart too hard right now, and his heart would stop. Somehow though, the truck manages to miss a couple shots, letting me through. Using some window ledges to sneak around the truck, we get ambushed again. However, this time, it's not hunters, it's 2 survivors. The older one is Henry, and the younger one is Sam. They seem to know their way out of the city, so we end up following them. Not long later, we come across 3 more hunters. 3 hunters that I get no help with, mainly because I pick them out first, but that's besides the point. After that, 2 more hunters show up and take perch on a ledge above us. And I shit you not, both of them decided to play peekaboo with us, while Henry plays Ring Around the Rosie by himself. Truly riveting gameplay. We make it to their hideout, where Henry informs us of the plan. There's a gate leading out of the city that is only protected by a skeleton crew at night. He also mentions a radio tower just past the bridge that his group wants to regroup at, and that'll be a good spot to take shelter. If we work together, we should be able to fight through them to escape. Surely we're definitely gonna work together on this, though, right? Another quick sleepy time later, and we make our way to the gate. There's a bunch of dudes and 1 guy on a spotlight. This is another fight you can't really stealth through. This is because after a certain point, more guys spawn and rush you. So, I used a Molotov cocktail and lit them up. This only gets rid of 1 or 2 of them, and the rest come flooding in. After missing a shot I shouldn't have, and getting aimbotted, I tried this section again, just a lot more safely. After taking my time, we finally make it to the gate. I then stupidly forget a guy spawns on top of this truck and immediately eat dirt. The next time goes smoother though. After boosting Henry, Sam, and Ellie up onto the truck, the ladder breaks before Joel's able to climb up. Henry decides to take Sam and leaves us to die. Ellie jumps down to stay with us, and we run for a nearby garage door. Despite not having any ammo, we make it past the few goons in this building without issue. Outside, we make a run for the bridge while getting hunted down once again by the truck. Once getting to the middle of the bridge, we find that it's collapsed and we're trapped. Ellie makes the executive decision to put her life on the line and jumps into the river below, causing Joel to have to follow her. We end up getting knocked out by a rock in the river, but are saved by Henry. While Joel's not happy about him leaving us behind, he understands that he did it for Sam, and we rejoin as a group. Henry ends up finding a sewer drain that we can use to cut through the cliff next to us to get to the radio tower faster. After doing our usual bits of exploration and puzzles here and there, we come across our next gun, the Shorty. It's basically a shotgun in pistol form. We learned that there are some infected in these sewers, so we need to be careful. We are then separated, with Joel and Sam getting stuck in a room full of stalkers and clickers. And despite having a new shotgun, I booked it the hell out of there, only shooting the enemies that stood in between me and the exit. Surprisingly, it worked, and we did get through decently smoothly. Right after, we meet back up with Henry and Ellie and need to run from the infected. When we do find an exit, I also find another Molotov cocktail. After getting the kids out, this area becomes sort of a survival section. We don't need to kill all of the infected to progress, we just have to wait out a timer for the exit to open up. I immediately use the new Molotov cocktail to deal with one of the spawns of infected. After that, it's mostly just staying away from them and using my shotgun whenever necessary. I just need to stay alive until I hear Ellie say, "We got it," and then I know the exit is open. After finally making it outside, we have a nice long section of a neighborhood full of supplies. Well, I say full of supplies, but it's grounded mode, so there's really not that. We can't use them anyways. A short walk through these empty houses later, and we make it to the next combat section. This one's a bit different, however. There's a sniper looking over most of the area that we need to avoid. Pair that with the multiple more enemies on the ground and my lack of ammo, and we're in for a bad time. Without needing to say much, I did die a few times here. There were a few times that I was instantly gunned down without even seeing anyone. On the winning attempt, I ended up just luring enemies into this house and circling around this desk to sneak attack. Once I had killed everyone, I got jump scared by a guy walking through the front door. Heart attack aside, we make it down the street where the sniper is set up. Inside, I'm once again jump scared by someone just sprinting through the front door. While trying to get away from him, I guess he fell into the ether because I didn't see him again after that. I just took out the sniper and started the next section. In this part, we're the sniper. Henry, Sam, and Ellie are forced into the middle of the road, and I need to protect them from an onslaught of hunters trying to kill them. Thankfully, the sniper is a one-shot to all enemies. Before long, it does get worse with the turret truck showing up once again. This time we need to protect the trio until the truck decides to push up. At a certain point, the truck will then open its top hatch and start throwing Molotovs out, and it's as simple as shooting one of these Molotovs to completely take out the truck. With Henry, Sam, and Ellie now safe, the infected come out to play. After shooting a clicker off of Sam, we take out a few more infected while they get to the house and the section ends. After that, we get a nice cutscene with all four of them hiding out in the radio station with nothing going on. Not a single thing wrong with any of them at all. Yeah, Sam's infected. The next morning over breakfast, Ellie tries to wake Sam up, but is attacked by him. Henry then takes it upon himself to remove Sam and himself from the group permanently. Finally, we make it to fall and are done with summer, and we press on in the search of Tommy. After completing a quick puzzle at a hydroelectric power plant, we find our next gun of the run, the El Diablo. It's basically the hunting rifle before your hand. It's essentially what the shorty is to the shotgun. We come across gates leading into a facility, but are then held at gunpoint by the residents and told to state our business. Before we can, Tommy opens the gate and greets us. It turns out him and his group are currently trying to get the power plant working again so that they can have electricity. It also just so happens that they're about to start the plant up again to see if everything's working correctly, so we go back there to see what's up. Joel also tells Tommy that he needs to talk to him after they try out the plant. Tommy's men turn on the machines and it starts running, giving them electricity again. Soon after, they talk. Joel wants to drop off Ellie with Tommy and have him take her to the Fireflies. Tommy says that he can't because he has a family now and doesn't want to take the risk. This leads to a bit of a scuffle, but during it, the power plant is raided, leading to the next combat section. Enemies truly do not hold back here and will unleash everything they have into you given the chance. One part towards the end was especially difficult for me due to grounded mode making ammo drops so inconsistent. It didn't help that on the second to last section, I got a little trigger happy and wasted all of my ammo. On one of my attempts, I got upwards of 8 bullets from just a couple guns, but since I died and had to replay it, the next time I only got 3. This meant I had to either be super careful with the ammo, or just pray that I actually got the drops I needed. After a few deaths, the raiders are dealt with. At this point, Ellie learns of our plans to dump her off with Tommy and takes off on a horse. Joel and Tommy leave too and end up finding her tracks leading into the wood. Obviously, on the way there, there's another firefight, and this one kicked my ass. I'm still quite low on ammo from the raiders earlier, not to mention I don't have much health. It doesn't help that the guys we're trying to fight just don't move. It's like dumb little birds up in their perch staring down at us. There was even a point where they also started to play peekaboo with us. After a while of waiting, I noticed that a couple of them would work their way down towards us. So, being the absolute coward I am, I sat and waited. Doing it this way, I easily picked off each one of them. Continuing along the path, we find a cabin and this is where Ellie is. We end up finding her upstairs reading someone else's journal and questioning the world around her. You know, as we all do. They end up getting into a bit of a fight with Joel standing his ground and telling her that they are parting ways. Once again, cue the obligatory combat section and the raiders show up. All was going well until I got the literal shit scared out of me by a guy with a machete. By some stroke of luck, he didn't instantly kill me, but I got to live with a red screen for the next bit. Making my way downstairs and I find 3 more idiots trying to kill us, all while not moving and yelling at us to come out. Okay, sure buddy. I used the lie in wait strategy again and it ends up working pretty well. Also, right as I was shooting the final guy, his friend tried to pull a get down Mr. President but died with him. Making our way back with Tommy, Joel has a change of heart and decides to take Ellie with him to find the Fireflies instead. Then we end up at the University of Eastern Colorado. Oh boy, I'm out for summer break and still going to university. Here we find a new weapon for our arsenal, the flamethrower. This one's also sitting in my back pocket because there's no chance in hell I'm finding ammo for this bad boy. Progressing through the college, we find a generator that needs to be turned on, but it's surrounded by infected, because of course it is. Using the bow and just general stealth, I end up killing all of them without alerting them. Afterwards, we find monkeys, and yet another generator we have to deal with. This one has us going through a dormitory through spore-infested rooms full of clickers. Not only is there clickers, there's yet another bloater. After accidentally alerting one of the clickers, I find out that this bloater was studying to become a dentist. Open wide. On my next try, I managed to sneak past all of them and make it out alive. We continue our way through the campus before finally finding the science building. This is where the Fireflies are meant to be, despite us not seeing any so far. Looking around, we don't find anyone. The place is empty. Apart from some medical supplies and info, there's nothing for us here. That's when we hear a sound and go investigate. When you know, it's monkeys. Looking around a bit more, we find a tape recorder next to a dead body. While skipping through it, we hear that the Fireflies have left for Salt Lake City. The game once again shows us that nowhere, even abandoned schools, is safe and we're shot at by hunters. One of these hunters then tries to ambush us, but gets turned into paste. His friend also goes along with him. Being slow and taking our time makes this part a breeze. That is until we get back downstairs and are ambushed. Joel and this guy end up falling down a floor with Joel getting impaled by some rebar. With the help of Ellie, we then have to fight our way through in this injured state. Making it outside, we manage to get on the horse and ride away. However, our luck soon runs out once more, and Joel passes out falling off the horse. Now for Winter. Man, that part was hard. Wait a minute. So, I have to confess something. I never hit record. So even though I got through this section just fine, I went back into the chapter select to do it again to get the footage. Also, I turned off the digital deluxe thing, even though I know it doesn't affect Ellie. Now we get to hunt a deer. Needless to say, it's blind as a bat and super easy to hit. However, with it being a deer and dumb, it runs headlong into a couple guys. These guys try to convince us to at least trade some of the meat, and in return, Ellie wants medicine for Joel. The men agree and one of them heads back for the medicine. The other one, named David, stays with us to watch the deer. Ellie also takes his rifle. After a bit of waiting, we are ambushed by infected. David pulls out another gun that he never told us he had, giving us the first sign that this man is not trustworthy. Surely that won't be an issue later. We now get to fight off waves of infected in this tiny room. To our advantage, there are boards on the windows that slow them down, but it doesn't make it easy. After getting my shit kicked in and killing a dozen or so infected, we make it through the first section. And apart from falling into a pit full of clickers and needing to deal with that, the second section isn't bad. That being said, the third and final one completely makes up for the missing difficulty. In this room, we're able to find a Molotov and a nail bomb, as well as a bit of ammo. And that's it. Not to mention, this bit is quite long. It's difficult enough with the infected and clickers coming along from all angles, but towards the end, a bloater spawns as well. With how messed up my face is from the first section, I go down pretty easily in this one. The only saving grace really is that most infected will drop a bullet or two, as well as the arena randomly spawning some as well. After dying here more times than I'd care to admit, the bloater goes down and we're able to continue. At this point, in case the game decided to give me any upgrades it thought necessary, I've reloaded an autosave from my main save after completing this section. So now we should be able to continue the game without any bonuses it might have thrown our way. By the campfire again, David somehow connects the dots that we're the little girl that's been traveling with a madman killing his men. We still get the medicine, but while leaving, David insists that he can protect Ellie. Making it back to safety, we find that Joel is in fact still alive and we administer the medicine to him. Thanks to us leaving some horse tracks behind, David's men end up catching up with us. Ellie decides to lure them away so that they don't find Joel. After running on the horse for a while, it's then shot dead and we fly off a small cliff. Now we have to make our way back to Joel while fighting our way through these hunters. Now for this section, and most of Winter, it's essentially the same as a normal grounded run without crafting. Ellie doesn't have any upgrades for herself or guns, so we don't need to worry about any of that. That being said, this is still grounded. Fighting through these guys is not going to be a simple feat. We need to take it slow, a lot slower than normal. Thankfully, we are able to pick off a few of them and get ourselves a shotgun. Moving forward, it's as simple as sneaking around them whenever we can and killing them whenever possible. In this beginning bit, one of the guys shoots me with a shotgun, but it somehow doesn't kill me. It only leaves me at very low health. Once he turns around, we really stick it to him. After moving forward a bit and even finding some health, I get my head kicked in by a guy I didn't even see coming. Getting back to this point again, he doesn't even get close to me. Progressing a bit further and we make our way out of here. There's only a couple enemies in this next section, so it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, you know what? I gotta stop speaking too soon. After completely giving it to this guy, we finally find an exit. Or not, that's not an exit, that's a plot point. Yep, David kidnaps us. This is when it's confirmed that David's men are hunters and cannibalize anyone who opposes them. David also tries to reassure Ellie that he can protect her while getting a little too touchy. Ellie then breaks his finger and he vows to chop her up into little pieces while leaving her in the cell. Now we go back to being Joel. Needless to say, we're trying our best to find Ellie and see where she's gone off to. On the way, we're ambushed, kind of, by David's men. After shooting just 2 of them, they run for the hills and we give chase. After taking out a couple more, the last 2 keep running, so we chase them again. Except this time, they're waiting for us. One guy holds us while the other one slowly walks towards us with a knife, but we're able to get out of this situation. Then we take these 2 willing volunteers into the house next to us for interrogation. Interrogation goes off without a hitch, Joel learns where Ellie is, and they're let off freely. Back to Ellie, and she's literally on the chopping block. Getting out of the cell, she ends up biting David and she uses this to her advantage. She then shows them that she's infected with the bite on her arm, and it causes them to freak out just long enough for her to be able to get away. This is when Winter really gets serious. I have to navigate through streets of hunters while a blizzard's going on and I only have a knife at my disposal. Granted, there are bricks and bottles as well, and if I happen to kill any of them, I can get their gun. but I have to kill one first. Thankfully, revolvers are still one-shots to human enemies, so it works out in our favor this time. I end up failing at being stealthy and get cornered in this one room. There's a few bricks and bottles around, so I'm able to fight my way out. Progressing through this part, we try and make the best use of every single brick and bottle we can get our grubby little fingers on. This means a lot of cuts and a lot of broken noses for the enemy. After a little while, I even get enough ammo to no longer have to worry about stealth as much. Before long, we make it into a safe building. However, when we try to leave, David once again shows his ugly face and attacks us. This starts a boss fight with him. Back in the remaster, I used to be really good at this fight. So much so that I'm not even... Okay, my hubris is showing. After being torn to ribbons a couple times, I eventually get my shit together. After striking him down a couple times, he enters stage 3 and starts sneaking around as well. The only thing is that he's a grown man and blatantly obvious with where he's going. Not only that, once he gets somewhere, he just sits there and doesn't move. So, needless to say, easily dealt with. Once again, back to Joel. This time we're fighting through a couple waves of hunters that know we're coming and don't run from us. That being said, the only truly difficult part about this section right here is a guy with high ground hidden by the snow towards the back of the arena. Despite knowing exactly where he was, I missed and he didn't. After clearing everything out again and nearly dying to the same guy, I take him out, only to almost find out too late that he has a friend up there with him. Thankfully, I saw him before he shot me. After that, it was pretty much as simple as slowly sneaking up with my shotgun and playing peekaboo with anyone who dare got close enough. Joel then finds a burning building, and it's back to Ellie's point of view. After crawling her way to David's machete and him trying to choke her out, she instead turns him into ribbons, finally ending this psychopath's reign of power. Joel saves us, and it's off to Spring, the endgame. We're finally in Salt Lake City and see the hospital that the tape recorder mentioned the Fireflies would be in. After seeing the local wildlife, this time it actually being animals, we continue our way to the hospital, now for the infected tunnel. With it being so close to the endgame, this is the final gauntlet of infected to get through. You're meant to fight through waves of infected, clickers, and a couple bloaters. Yeah, no, you can completely skip all of that and sneak through the entire thing. It's a little tricky at certain points, but you'll learn here that bloaters are actually blind. After a jump scare with the clicker and a couple more puzzles, we make it to the tunnel just outside the hospital. However, this tunnel is full of raging water. If you remember back in the earlier part of this game, Ellie can't swim, so we need to be careful. Obviously, we're not careful, and a bus we drop onto loses grip and starts to drift down the river. Only Joel is in the bus, with Ellie being safe, but she jumps onto the bus to try to help us. And credit where credit is due, she does. However, the bus tips over and she falls in. After a while of swimming, we find her passed out body in the water and drag her to safety. Unfortunately, before we're able to resuscitate her, we get knocked out. We then wake up inside the hospital with Marlene sitting next to us. We tell her that we fought through hell to get here and we just want to see Ellie. Marlene tells us that's not possible because she's already being prepped for surgery. The cordyceps fungus formed around her brain, causing her to be immune. But this means once it's removed, she'll die. Joel is having none of this and then tries his best to save her, which means we get to fight through a hospital full of fireflies. Fun. So now this is the hardest part of the game with no upgrades and no crafting. And boy, are we in for one hell of a ride. These guys don't mess around and can very easily kill us before we even really understand what's going on. Pair that with the sheer amount of them and my lackluster ammo count, and I think you can see the issue. Thankfully though, we do have a couple crafted items from earlier at our disposal, as well as bricks, bottles, and a pipe. That being said, this is the absolute opposite of easy. This game, while trying to help me, hindered me in such a way that I didn't think would be possible. It gave me checkpoints. Now I know that doesn't sound too bad, but take this clip for example. Here I have 2 Molotov cocktails and I throw them both towards enemies. I miss both of them. Before realizing the hell I just put myself into, I end up killing someone else and getting a checkpoint. This means every time I die now, I'm going back to this point without those Molotovs and forever remembering those terrible throws, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. Somehow, by the skin of my teeth, I slowly whittle them down and make it past the first floor. That's right, first floor. There's a second. This second floor is the last section in between us and the operating room with Ellie in it, and boy, do the fireflies know it. I'm not positive on an exact number, but there is at least a dozen of them in a huge room, all looking at the main entrance. Funnily enough, this section was a little bit easier than the first one. This is because, as well as the main entrance, there is a small side entrance. Enemies would slowly funnel their way down through the side entrance and quite literally walk into their death by my own hands. I'm not fully sure why, but they kept circling around this one area without checking the boxes I was hiding behind. It's silly, but if it works, it works. Eventually, I make it down to the final 2 guarding the door. While I could have gone out guns blazing, I didn't want to die this far in, so I used my smoke bombs. Not gonna lie, in any normal playthrough, I completely forget that these things exist, but with there only being 2 enemies and me having 2 smoke bombs, it's more than enough to get them away from each other and to pick them off one after the other. We finally make it to the final room with Ellie, grab her, and start running. While the fireflies do try to chase us, they aren't able to stop us. We make it down to the parking lot and are stopped by Marlene. She says we can still do the right thing and that Ellie won't feel a thing. We then cut to Joel driving down the highway in a car. In the back seat, Ellie wakes up, still in her hospital gown. Joel then lies to her, saying that there are dozens more like her and that the fireflies have stopped looking for a cure. It's also revealed that Joel has killed Marlene. At the very end, when they finally make it to Jackson, Tommy's town, Ellie tells Joel that when she was infected, she wasn't alone. Her friend Riley was there with her, and she also got bit. She then explains that Riley was the first to die, then it was Tess, then Sam. In the end, she asked Joel one last time if all he said about the fireflies was true, and he says,
I swear.
And that's the run. While it was pretty difficult, I do feel like the game would be possible without any craftables at all. In any case, if you made it this far, liking and subscribing would really help the channel out. YouTube thinks that you'll like this video, so you should click it to see if they're right. Have a good night. I wonder who that Riley girl is.